So we got Dax, Oliver Anthony, Men North of Richmond remix. And it says here, united we stand, divided we fall. Can't argue with that. You know what I'm saying? Let's go, Dax.
It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to. For people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true. But it is, oh it is, living in the new world with an whole soul. The rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
This world has changed and I had to accept it. They ask my political views while I search for their hidden agendas. I don't got an answer, I try to remember the devil divides. Pressure appears from our peers. Those arguments waste our time while helping to push their lies, so fuck political views. I got common sense. I know God made man, and the sun sets on a life where we focus on things that we cannot control and accumulate so much regret. By the time we decide to live, we're practically already dead. So I go to sleep with the thoughts of 45 years living in debt. 45 years can't pay rent. 45 years just for a pension I'm too old to enjoy and go spend. 45 years working and slaving for rich men with no time for my family and friends. Then I wake up and pray that it ends.
Living in the new world with an whole soul. The rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
Descendants of Adam and Eve, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They're taking God.
So look, I love the fact that he's denouncing identity politics. Alright, he's basically saying the only thing that's good for is dividing people. Alright. And, I think the same way. I think if we spent more time talking about what things we agree on and figuring out that, what? Even though we come from different backgrounds, we still have a lot of stuff that we agree on. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like what he said at the beginning. United we stand, divided we fall. So he's basically countering divisive rhetoric. That's basically what he's doing. Alright? And that is a message I'm going to support no matter what. I don't care who it is. If they're conservative, if they're Democrat, if they're Republican, if they're a Trump supporter, or whoever else. I don't care. If they are countering divisive rhetoric, I'm going to support them. On that principle alone. Now, maybe there's other things that they would promote that I wouldn't agree with. And that's totally fine. And I would disagree with them on those points. But whatever points I agree with them on, I'm not going to be afraid to say that. So, I think there's another video we're going to watch a few minutes of after this. We have to. It is like a perfect segue into that because of what Dax is talking about and what I believe is very similar to what Dax believes. Alright. A lot of people don't understand what centrist means. I'm going to go ahead and explain it. And then the video we're going to watch after this guy doesn't get it. Doesn't have a clue what people mean when they say I am a centrist. Alright. So what it means is basically we don't just fall in line with one ideology over another. We don't just blindly vote Democrat. We don't just blindly vote Republican. Alright. We're not afraid to side with the left or the right on every single issue. It doesn't mean we're undecided on every single issue because, I gotta be in the middle, I can't choose a side. No, we can choose a side either way on every single issue. Alright? Whether it be gun control, I can choose for myself what side of the fence I want to be on when it comes to gun control. When it comes to this, I choose for myself, right? I'm not playing identity politics. I'm not just going to side with the left on every single issue because that's my identity and that's what I have to choose. That's what being a centrist is. Oh, right. So it really irritates me that so many people just doesn't have a clue. They just automatically hear you're a centrist and they go, oh, you're just undecided on everything. No, it's not. Now, they can lean left or right on most issues or whatever else. That's totally fine. But the ultimate goal is don't play identity politics. Don't look at someone else who's on the opposite side of the fence and say, you're wrong about everything. We could never agree on anything at all. That's divisive. And that's what me and Dax here is trying to combat. You know what I'm saying?
So, the rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
Descendants of Adam and Eve, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They're taking God out the schools. Our kids don't know what to believe. From 6 to 18, the curriculum fails and Gen Z gets taught by their phones with forced feeds that get sponsored and paid by companies. That's how they attack us, it starts with the youth. If you lie enough, you'll convince anybody the lie's the truth. So telling these kids they can choose their own gender at ages they can't even tie their own shoes. Drive or drink is crazy. Common sense isn't common unless it pays me. That's the thought process daily. Look at the content we're creating, lies diluting our brains. I'm done trying to argue online with these people who think that a vote's gonna bring about change. How many presidents does it take to have a life worth living? An actual comfortable wage. No more school shootings. Let's unite these states.
It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to. For people like me, and people like you, wish I could just wake up and it not be true. But it is, oh it is, living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men.
To put it in the simplest way possible, gender theory does not belong in elementary, pre-K, anything like that. You know what I'm saying? That is a very complex, thing, right? And the only way I could ever see that being appropriate is if there is a specific child who has, gender dysphoria or some type of real medical, thing that is going on, right? That specific child could need therapy, could need to talk to doctors, talk to, professional psychologists, whatever it takes. But to just put everyone in the same category and say, all students need to hear about gender theory, that's not okay. All right? And I think that does more damage than it does good. And, that, I think, could really go towards getting students to look at one another in judgmental ways, right? Like, you could see a girl, being really good at basketball or something like that, right? And then you could start encouraging, without trying to, of course, but you could start encouraging other students to pick on that student and start making fun of them for being trans when they actually aren't. You see what I'm talking about? So the only thing that goes to do, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but the only thing it goes towards doing is creating more harm towards the LGBTQ community, towards everything. It doesn't belong in schools like that. All right. If someone is having legitimate, like I said, gender dysphoria, genuine medical problems, that's a personal problem for that specific student to deal with. That needs to have their parents involved, needs to have, and not have other students knowing about that. The teachers don't need to know about that. That is a personal issue for that student to know about and to deal with on their own. We don't need to be telling other students, look at this student over here, something's wrong with them, right? We don't need to be doing that. That is not okay, all right? And especially, I don't know if they actually are saying this, that, well, you can just choose whatever gender you want. I don't know if they are saying that, but if they are, of course I'm going to disagree with them. All right, that's not a real thing. You don't just get to make believe whatever gender you want to say, oh, that's what gender I am. Doesn't work that way. So there's two belief systems here, right? One is that your anatomy is what determines your sex. The other is that your mentality is what determines your sex. All right? And then your anatomy is formed based on your mentality. The hormones you get, all of your genes and everything else. And then you get your anatomy, your physical makeup, right? That happens afterwards. All right? And, I could be totally wrong, but the way I look at it is your hormones, your brain pattern and everything else, that all comes in first. And then the rest of your body starts becoming whole. You know what I'm saying? So if things get screwed up before that process happens, then you could have a person with legitimate medical issues. All right? And if that happens, I don't see how you could call that person out for being a sinner or or an abomination of God, right? Because you have a legitimate medical issue. You did not ask to be born with dysfunctional, brain patterns or whatever else happened. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at that. And if they are actually saying that anyone is just free floating, you could just be whatever you want, that I'm going to disagree with. Absolutely not. That's not a real thing. I will never support a message like that. All right? The only message I will support is that some people have real medical issues and were not born the way they should be. All right? That's my opinion. And really, if you want to disprove that, you know what I'm going to tell you? You can't. You really can't. You don't know every little thing that a person is dealing with. You can't read their mind, and there's no test to tell you every little detail about a person. That's not you. You know what I'm saying? So, we don't know.
Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
And I hope everyone can at least agree with that sentiment. You know what I'm saying? That some people could have legitimate medical issues even as a child, and that child would need special care. You know what I'm saying? That's as far as that needs to go. Even if there's a classroom with a couple students who has medical issues like that, that doesn't mean the teacher now all of a sudden has to bring in their gender unicorn and start going through that whole spiel. No. That is personal issues a couple students are dealing with, and that's their business. That's the business between that student and their parents and whatever other professional healthcare provider they need to bring in to handle that situation. It's not for other students to know about. There's enough bullying that goes on as it is. You know what I'm saying? You got it, Dax. Hey, completely support this. You know what I'm saying? Well, even though it sounded like I had a criticism of it, I really didn't. Because I don't think that's what Dax was talking about. You know, I don't think Dax was saying, you know, every single person who claims to be trans is just confused. Right? I don't think that's what he was saying. What he basically said was, it don't belong in the classroom. And it don't. It really don't. You know, especially not for little kids. That's not something every little kid needs to know about. All right. So let me go find this other video that's going to be talking about someone being a centrist and him just totally not getting it.
But even if they didn't say that, we already know. Anyone who knows how these things work already knows. You know, when I heard it playing at the debate myself, I immediately knew that Oliver Anthony approved that because of copyright law. And they're not going to just play the song without permission. I mean, they could, but they're probably not going to. They're going to get permission.
So, here's what I'm going to say about that. I did a reaction to the song. Did I get permission? No. Do you think everyone who did a reaction to that video got permission first? No. It doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying? Now, it might be a bit different for Fox or for any actual news channel before they're going to feature something like that. They might want to get permission first. All right? Because that's a much bigger deal than just, you know, me or someone else doing a reaction video. All right? So, you know, maybe he did give them permission first. It doesn't change the fact of what he was talking about. All right? He never explicitly said, I did not give them permission. He never explicitly said, you know, I did not want them to play the song. He just said, I thought it was funny that they played the song and they had to listen to that. That song was written about those people on that stage. He never said, I did not want them to play it. They did not have permission. He never said they didn't have permission. He never said, you know, I didn't give them permission. And he never said, I'm going to file a copyright claim on them. Didn't say that either. He could have very well said, you know what, I gave them permission. I still think it was a bad idea because I wrote that song about those people on that stage. He could have said that. You know what I'm saying?
And they said that they did. So he approved the song being played and then said he's aggravated by it and then said he doesn't want the song politicized, yet he approved it being played at a political debate. So, doesn't make
that part doesn't make sense. And I even called him out on that too. All right? Because like I said, you made a song about politics and then you get mad when people wrap politics up into it. You know what I'm saying? Because think about that line that he said. I wrote that song about those people on that stage. About politicians. And then later on, he said it's hard to convey all of your political beliefs in 3 minutes or less, or something like that. So again, you say the song's about politics, but then again, you're also saying, oh, I hate that they wrapped up politics into this. Very inconsistent. All right? I'm going to call it like I see it. His stances on everything isn't very consistent. All right.
make a lot of sense. So that's where I'm at here. I do think he seems to be playing sort of both sides of the fence a little bit, and I don't mean politically. I don't care that he's a centrist. Centrism is incoherent. It's never made less sense to be a political centrist than it does today.
That's because Either no one's ever explained it to you, or you've just never listened. Because I just explained it a few minutes ago. This is why we're here, right?
When the two sides are so fundamentally opposed on the fundamental realities of life, there really is no middle ground on these issues. An issue like, for example, is a woman, can a woman be a man or not? Like, there's no middle ground. It's just, you can't, it doesn't exist. So you really do have to choose a side. You just do, period.
Again, because he doesn't understand what they mean by centrist. All right? This is a straw man argument. It's exactly what we got right here, y'all. He's going off of his understanding of what it means to be a centrist. Instead of just posing the question, what does it mean for you to be a centrist? And actually do some real research into that. Hey, what does it mean by being a centrist? Let's pull up a website. Let's type that in. What does it mean to be a centrist? And as a matter of fact, I can do that. I could do that right here for you guys. Matter of fact, instead of doing that, maybe I will find a video. Just give a quick explanation of what being a centrist actually means. And I bet you I'm going to be able to find maybe some that will have his explanation of it, and some that will fit more in line with what I'm talking about. All right? It's not someone who's just undecided on every single issue. That would be someone who basically doesn't care about politics whatsoever. All right? That would be that type of person that would say, I don't know, because you know why? They don't study politics. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have any political views. If they're just undecided on every issue, they don't pay attention to it then. All right? So I think this guy is way off base with that part. A couple other things he was totally right about, but not that.
So centrism makes no sense, but I don't care about that. If you're a musician and you say you're a centrist, whatever, who cares? That's not the point. It's what could be perceived as throwing people who've helped and supported you under the bus. That's the thing I don't like. But then again, the guy doesn't have a PR firm helping him through this. That's the point. So it is.
So this is even worse than being confused about what centrist actually means. This is even worse. I didn't actually finish watching the video, but as soon as I heard him be so wrong about what centrist means, I stopped and I was like, I'm going to have to do a video about that and sort of talk about that and explain that better, so maybe some of you guys who don't know what that means could actually start to understand it better. All right? Like, that's the idea. That's the goal, is to be a centrist. As much as possible, try and be unbiased so that whenever you're looking at each individual issue, you could side left or you could side right. That's being a centrist. All right? You are grounded in the middle, and you can go either way on each individual issue instead of just saying, I always have to go to the left or I always have to go to the right. If someone says they are right-leaning, they're more of a centrist. If they say they're left-leaning, guess what? They're more of a centrist. Because they're left-leaning, that means they don't always go to the left and they don't always go to the right. That's being a centrist. All right? That's a good thing. Whenever someone says that, that's not a bad thing. Don't try and beat them up over it because you don't understand what that means. If you don't understand something, it's okay to ask. I don't know what, maybe your definition of being a centrist is different than what mine is, so go ahead and explain it. What do you mean by that? It's that simple. If you don't understand what someone's talking about, you can ask them, what do you mean? You know what I'm saying? So he says, he is now throwing people under the bus who basically gave him his platform, who, put him on the map, right? And now he's just throwing him under the bus. So what he's saying is he should show favoritism to people who basically gave him his platform. Show favoritism towards them, no matter what he believes, because what he believes don't matter, right? It's all about give and take. If you receive a favor from someone over here, then you can never talk bad about them. You could never say anything at all, no matter what they do. That sort of favoritism is what is ruining this country. All right. Think about it in terms of corruption. All right. Now, I think some of you guys might be starting to see where I'm going with this. Let's imagine there's a mayor who is constantly getting sexual harassment charges or something like that. Just something crazy, right? And then the president knows about that, right? But constantly protects them. Keeps paying off the people that they are assaulting, right? So then later on, when the president gets in trouble for doing the same exact thing, see where I'm going with this now? That person that he constantly paid off, he knows some of the president's victims, and he could blow the whistle and give everyone the proof that that was going on. But instead of doing that, because of all the favors he received, and because he knows if he blows the whistle's going to get blown on him too. You know what I'm saying? So he's going to keep his mouth shut. And then all the women that the president assaulted, it's just hypothetical. I'm not, this is not serious. This is just an example of corruption. This is just a hypothetical. All right. This is just to explain what I'm talking about. The type of loyalty he thinks the conservatives deserve is ridiculous. All right. No one is deserving of that type of loyalty. All right. I am glad that he was able to set that aside and speak his truth. All right. It's as simple as that. Imagine if he signed a record deal, right? I know he passed up a couple, or I know it's a large sum of money he could have gotten. He turned them all down. Good for him, by the way. But let's just imagine, hypothetical again, he accepts a record deal, right? And then in the contract it says, you could never bring up anything negative about this record label, about that record label, about this politician, about that politician, or anything like that, right? You can't talk bad about Ben Shapiro. You can't talk bad about Candace Owens. You see what I'm saying now? We don't need that type of loyalty to be expected of anybody, all right? Especially an artist. And I think a lot of people should agree with that. Artists needs to have their freedom to put whatever words down they want. If we agree, then we'll listen. If we don't agree, we don't have to listen, but we still can if we want to. That's our freedom to choose who we listen to and who we don't. You know what I'm saying? So he thinks it's a horrible thing that he threw the conservatives under the bus when the conservatives were the ones who basically put him on the map. I think that's a good thing, because at least it shows he's being honest. That's what we need. We need honesty. All right. We don't need people pandering and catering to one side or the other. Notice I said or the other. Pandering and catering to either side is bad. We need honesty. We don't need any more fake people just trying to make a buck. All right. And I don't know that much about Matt Walsh, but I got a feeling like he got his feelings hurt whenever he threw the conservatives under the bus. He got his feelings hurt, and now he's really salty about it. And so I gotta try and throw him under the bus now. Now I gotta say, he shouldn't have turned his back on the conservatives because we gave him his platform. So what? Now you're going to try and take it away from him? Now the next time someone comes along, you guys are going to be more careful? Come on. You guys should care more about the message he's promoting instead of how he feels about you. All right? That's what should really matter. If you supported him before that video came out, right, you should still support him. He has the right to his opinion about conservatives. He has the right to his opinion about Democrats. He has the right to his opinion about everybody. All right? And you can't just call the man out and say, you can't feel that way about this person or that person. He can feel however the hell he wants. It's still a free country. All right? We have the freedom of speech for a reason. He's exercising his freedom of speech just like you're exercising your freedom of speech. All right? And sure, you could say he's wrong for saying that or whatever else. That's totally fine. But you can't take his platform away from him, just like I can't do that to you. And I wouldn't try. You have the right to your opinions. He has the right to his. And guess what? I have the right to mine. All right? But look, the video, y'all, we got from Dax, amazing. I love the message behind it. I love that he's, calling out divisive rhetoric. All right. And the reason why I wanted to play this was just to show you guys what divisive rhetoric looks like. And keep in mind, I didn't even know how we were going to end this video right here. Because like I said, as soon as he made it very clear he didn't understand what being a centrist meant, I stopped it. And then it just went way off the rails after that. I almost forgot. We still need to find a short video explanation of what being a centrist actually means, just so you can hear it from someone else that isn't just me. All right? Because I haven't listened to anyone else explain what a centrist is. I just know. You know what I'm saying? I know because I try to be that. All right? That's it. I try and not let any side tell me how to think or how to feel. Simple as that. It's not that hard to figure out. But if you only listen to, propaganda, then you're probably going to have some really messed up views on the world. You know what I'm saying? So we got a video from David Pacman. Hopefully he's going to get this right. And as I was looking through, I just typed in, what is a centrist? And oh my goodness. Apparently, there's a lot of people who just doesn't understand what this is. All right. Let's see if David Pacman will be on the right track or not.
Hey, David, does political centrism make any sense, or is it a cop-out? I don't believe centrism is a cop-out, but let's think about it this way. You're basically saying with centrism, here's the Overton window of what's valid debate. Pick any issue. This is the sort of left bound of the debate. This is the right-wing bound of the debate. Centrism is picking a spot in the middle. Now, centrism, often I hear the question phrased as, is centrism principled or is it just political posturing? If you believe something, if your political beliefs genuinely are those that make you a centrist, then it's certainly genuine. I don't know how you can argue that it's not genuine, but we have to distinguish sort of between two types of centrists, okay? You can be
Okay.
a centrist on individual issues, or you can be a centrist in terms of where you are on the political spectrum. I'll give you examples of both so you understand the difference. If you're a centrist on individual issues, that means, for example, if we pick abortion, for example, you take what you consider to be a sort of middle of the road position between the two extremes on that issue. You might take the position, I don't even know what a centrist abortion position would be. It should be legal, but only for medical emergencies or during the first, I don't know, 10 weeks or something like that. And I know I'm like stepping into dangerous territory because people will either say, David, that's not a centrist position, that's a very left position or a very right position, depending on your politics. But that could mean
Exactly. That's up to debate, basically, right? But let's just keep going.
like you're in the middle on abortion or on gay marriage. You want gay marriage legal, but firing people for being gay also to be legal. I mean, I think that's a crazy position. I'm making it up. But the idea is on individual issues, you're in the middle. Then there's a different type of centrism, which is that you're a centrist on the totality of issues. In other words, you have some left wing arguments on some issues, but you have some right wing arguments or positions. Like you're on the left on gun control, but you're on the right on taxes or whatever. These are two different things, but in either
In the second scenario, that's basically what I'm talking about. On each individual issue, you could side with the left, the right, or wherever else. You are not tying yourself down to, I am a Democrat all the way through and through, or I am a Republican on every single thing, Republican all the way down the list, right? That is right, then there's left, then there's someone who is right in the middle that can go right, left, makes no difference to that person. Whether they side with the right or the left, they are always centered because even though, like, here's a few issues, I side with the right, I always go right back to the middle though, to where I can easily switch back and go to the left on this issue, and this issue. And then after I do that, I go right back to the middle, and I am now listening to the right again. Right? Keep in mind, these are all different issues. Each individual issue is something for me to decide. What side am I going to lean to on this specific issue? And then, when it comes to like further evaluation, because you are trying not to be biased towards one side or the other, you are more likely to be able to be influenced by either side to say, you know what, I thought before I, leaned left on this issue. I don't think I do anymore because the right made a compelling argument. Now my opinions have changed. Now I'm leaning to the right on this issue. And maybe you'll do the same, but in the opposite direction for a different issue. You see what I'm saying? You always go back to the middle, and that's where you try to stay as much as possible so that you're not, falling into echo chambers. That's what being a centrist actually is. And the first example he gave overall is someone who's just doesn't know that much about politics, doesn't follow it enough, doesn't understand that in a lot of cases it's either yes or no. Now, the example he gave, though, is not a bad take on abortion. It's really not. I think anyone who has a stance on abortion should be able to say what circumstances they would say, okay, I could see it, being applicable in this scenario, but not in this scenario. Or in this scenario, you've waited too long. Now the baby has a heartbeat. You can't do that. Or someone else might say, you know what? It's none. Like no abortion. Not even a morning after pill. Like just none. That would be strictly pro-life to the utmost extreme, right? And even that person, you could seriously challenge them on that. Like, what if it's a little girl who was assaulted? Now what do you say? Are you going to seriously tell me that a child who had nothing to do with that, she was assaulted, keep in mind, and now you're telling me she's in school and she now has to carry a baby in school, in high school, right? Like, how could you justify that? That's not to say that, that baby just doesn't matter at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you're talking about a baby who's being expected to have a baby. That's what we're talking about in that scenario, right? And what I would say then is the person who assaulted that little girl is responsible for the trauma she receives and responsible for the trauma the baby's going to receive. All right? And so, guess what? He should get in trouble for that. All right? Homicide. That's my take on it. Now, I don't see too many ways someone could argue against that. I mean, we are talking about a little girl being assaulted. I seriously don't think that little girl is going to be judged, right, for that. Because keep in mind, this was a victim. And in my mind, we don't persecute victims. I don't see how anyone could argue against that. All right. Another argument that a lot of people make for abortion is to say, well, raising a child is so expensive and maybe they're just not in a financial position to raise a child. There's always adoption. All right. And what gets me about this is the double standard of it all. Right? If a guy goes to a judge when he's being told he has to pay for child support, and he tells the judge, you know what, I just wasn't ready to be a dad. I don't think I should have this responsibility. What is that judge going to tell him? I shouldn't even have to ask, but I'm going to anyways. What's that judge going to tell him? I've heard it I don't know how many times. If you weren't ready, you should not have been participating in that activity. If you weren't participating in that specific activity, we wouldn't be here right now. But instead, you did that. You helped create that human being, and now you have to help take care of that human being. All right? What do they say? Apparently, whenever a woman says, you know what, I just am not ready to be a parent. That's okay. You could go have an abortion. Do you see the double standard in that? And then, to complicate matters even further, right? What if the mother wants to have an abortion, but the father doesn't? Oh, wait a minute, that's my child. You can't just do that. You know what I'm saying? Then what? Are they automatically going to side with the mother because, well, it's her body? Kind of funny how they never bring up the child's body. The child's body belongs to the child, does it not? It's not just the mother's body in question. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of messed up things when it comes to pro-abortion, right? But let's keep going.
Case, I actually find the analysis of centrism to be pretty similar. Is centrism going to achieve significant change in society? No. No. I mean, to some degree, when you say you are a centrist, you are saying some combination of things are sort of okay the way they are, in the sense that today the status quo is somewhere in the middle of where the left and the right want us to be. That could be one interpretation. Or you are saying that my positions are so much the average of everything that's out there that if my agenda were enacted, there would be no significant change to speak of. And I think both are kind of losing positions in terms of making positive change in society. Centrism as an ideology can be a cop-out, or it can be that you genuinely sort of think things are okay the way they are, or it can be that on some issues you're on the left and on some issues you're on the right, but you're not interested in systemic change. Either way, to me, it's not very interesting.
What do you mean by that? You're not interested in systemic change. That doesn't make any sense. Now, here's an interesting thing. What if someone really hates the Democratic Party and they also really hate the Republican Party? What ideology do you think they're going to side with? They're probably going to be a centrist. They're going to be somewhere in the middle. They're going to say, you know what? Some things you guys make sense on, some things you guys make sense on. It's as simple as that. So, I think David Pacman understands it a little bit more than a lot of other people. From what I saw, like he did get it that there are different types of centrism, and that one of the types of centrism is that on each individual issue, you could go left or right. It's not that you're going to just, I don't want to side left or right on this issue or that issue, right? I'm just undecided. I don't know, right? Again, someone who feels that way is not into politics, all right, at all. And, you know, I was going to post this on my reaction channel. I don't think I can because of, like, where we went. Like, we just went right into politics on this one. All right. So, this one I think we're going to leave to just the research channel. Because that's what this kind of stuff is for, right? Because I know a lot of people who like reaction videos, right? They don't like long form discussions like this. All right. Now, he does have a few minutes left, so let's go ahead and finish this. Let's hear the man out. But so far, like, he's almost on the right track. But, like what he just said, like they're not interested in real systemic change, I totally disagree with that.
Rarely is the middle the right place in the political world in reality, although very few issues are actually black and white in a sort of 0 or 1 binary kind of way.
But see, when he's talking about this, again, he's talking about the undecided person with some political views, right? He's not talking about someone who can go left or right on each individual issue. It doesn't already have their mind made up. The person who tries to be as unbiased as possible. That's what I consider a true centrist. All right. And I, like, is that really what most people think centrism actually is? Someone who's just, like, always in the gray area on everything? That's bizarre to me. Because really what you're talking about there, like I said, is someone who just doesn't get into politics. All right. Because if you ever notice, anyone who is interested in politics, they're going to have firm stances on like everything, or at least most things. You might get them a few topics where they're like, I don't really know about that. But most of the time, anything you bring up to them, they're going to say, yes, I have a firm stance on that, and here it is. They could also say, I'm a centrist because, I can go left on this issue, right on that issue. It doesn't matter. It's a toss-up. It just depends on what the issue is. That's a centrist.
Rarely is just picking the middle the right spot. On abortion, the middle is not the right spot. On economic justice.
That's your point of view. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially on abortion. Being in the middle on that, that's a great place to be. Because you're seeing both sides of the argument as being valuable. Right? Like I said, there's certain situations to where, you know what? You're talking about a little girl who was victimized. It's kind of hard to tell that little girl, well, guess what? You're going to have to carry the baby now. Or anyone who was victimized. And to tell them, well, you know what? You made the baby, now you're going to have to keep it. That's kind of hard to tell a person who's been victimized. That's a hard one to do. I mean, if you want to, you go right on ahead. I don't want to be there for that. You know what I'm saying? And that's not to say that baby's life doesn't have any value at all. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is the psychological trauma that you are pushing onto victims in those scenarios is not something to take lightly. That's the only thing I'm saying. All right. So on that issue specifically, being in the middle, that's a great place to be. All right. Because you're being reasonable at that point. Because you could understand from both sides. You could understand that certain scenarios, certain extreme scenarios, that might be the best thing to do. All right. And then you could also listen to other people. You can listen to both sides, right? And you could say, okay, you make a few good points here. You make a few good points here. So, there's a lot of good points coming from both sides. Where does that leave you? It leaves you right in the middle. All right. That's not a bad place to be, specifically on abortion. I think that is just a bad example. All right. It's a bad example in the sense of it doesn't really go to explaining what he's trying to get to. What he should have went with would be something more like teachers carrying guns in schools to keep the children safe. All right. That's a either yes or no answer. There's really no middle ground in there. The only middle ground someone could take is to say, yes, but I only approve if they're taking non-lethal weapons. That they can do, but I don't want any live ammunition to be in anyone's hands at school. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's not much middle ground there, is there? There's only that one thing I could think of. Other than that, you're either going to say, yes, it's a good idea, I want that, or no, that's a bad idea. We can't have live ammunition around children where they're going to be bullies and they're going to be kids having a bad day and they, run up to the teacher, kick him, whatever else, bam, I got his gun. You know what I'm saying? There's bad things that could happen out of that. All right, so there's not much middle ground. That would have been a better example.
Justice, the middle is not the right spot. And a lot of the divides that we experience today, and this is, I think, the most important thing, a lot of the divides that we have today are, some people call it tribalism. Jonathan Haidt calls it groupishness. Whatever term you want to apply to it, you can't really negotiate on a lot of these things. These are reactions, these are positions people have, not because they've sort of reasoned their way into them, but because they are gut fundamental feelings that they have on a number of different issues. And you're not going to be able to sort of talk out a compromise with a lot of people on a lot of these important political issues. So what exactly does being a centrist get you in that context? I don't think very much. There are issues where centrism and compromise is possible. Immigration would be an idea. On immigration, you actually might be able to get some kind of centrist compromise, and maybe it would be reasonable to do that. Overall, I see it as an unpragmatic farce that pretends to merely be pragmatic and objective. Breaking news, just being in the middle on an issue doesn't make you any less biased or more objective than having a more politically polarized position. It could be the right position, it could be the wrong position, you could have it for genuine reasons or disingenuous reasons, but there's nothing uniquely interesting about just being in the middle. So for me, it's not super interesting, and I don't pay too much attention to it.
All right, guys. So look, I think I figured out the problem. The problem is he barely talked about the definition that I have, right? Where it's not just being in the gray zone on every single issue. It's that you try to be unbiased with every issue, right? That is not just playing identity politics, right? Well, I usually side with the left, so I'm automatically going to go left, 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 left. And I don't care what the other side says. I'm not going to listen to them. That is where you get into echo chambers. That's where you get into identity politics. That's where you get into being biased, right? And it gets extremely difficult to sway anyone that's just locked into that side. Much easier to sway someone who identifies as a centrist because they've already listened to your side on a lot of different issues. They don't just hear the left say, look what this person over here said in this video, then they show a small clip, and then turns out the clip was taken out of context. They just made them look terrible. But instead, everyone who's locked into that site is going to see that clip and go, oh yeah, that's horrible. I can't believe they said that. Who would ever believe, this person? Who would ever listen to them? Instead of them going and watching the whole video themselves, they just take their word for it. They're just locked all the way in on the left. All right. That person's going to be a lot harder to sway because they're not going to listen to you. As soon as you tell them, hey, I'm repping the conservative side, right? They're not going to listen. Someone who identifies as a centrist, though, guess what? They want to listen. They want to see all the different takes and all the different points of view. They want to take everything in, right? And evaluate everything and then say, you know what? I side with this argument over here. I don't care that I usually go to the left. And that's the way I usually lean, is to the left. But on this issue, I'm leaning to the right. And I don't care how that makes the left feel. That's being a centrist. And that's what I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can go left or right. I don't care. All right. As I've stated previously, I am pro-life. I usually side with the left. However, when it comes to pro-life or abortion or whatever else, I'm pro-life. When it comes to gun control, I'm completely against gun control. I take the right on that issue. There are other issues where I take the left on. You know what I'm saying? So that's being a centrist. It's not that I'm just in the gray zone on every single issue. That's ridiculous. It's absurd. that type of mentality, like I said, is someone who doesn't understand that much about politics to start with. Also, someone who doesn't study politics enough to have a firm stance on anything. All right. So again, this is not someone with any political views, really. If they're just like, I don't want to side, I don't want to say yes or no on this issue. On that issue, nah, I don't know. I'm not getting into that. Right? And everything you bring up to them, they're just like, I'm not getting into that. Guess what? That is not a political person. That is someone who doesn't care about politics. Stop talking to them about politics. You know what I'm saying? So that person, I could understand a lot more with the rest of the conversation he was having here. But I think he really should have paid more attention to the person that I describe as myself, right? Where I try to not be biased to one side or the other. And what that means is, whenever I go to vote, I could vote for either side. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what principles do the people hold that I'm voting for? Which one aligns with my core values the most? That's it. Like, I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, if it's someone in the middle, I don't care what ideology he holds to. I literally do not care. What I care about are the values that he holds true to, the policies he would implement, what he would do for the American people. Those are the things I would care about more than just what his political ideologies are. Those are the things I would care about instead of just identity politics. You know what I'm saying? Well, he's a Democrat, so I have to vote for him. He's a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. He's a Democrat. That's all I care about. That is not that's not really a decided voter. That's not someone who's being a critical thinker. And I think that's the biggest difference here is identity politics versus centrism. It's more about not being biased versus someone who is always biased, right? Someone who wants to live in their echo chamber so they feel safe. I'm not that way. I like to reach out to people with different views and talk to them and ask them questions. Why do you feel the way you do about this issue or that issue? All right. And it usually doesn't go well. But you know what? I'm an optimist. I have to try. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times it feels like I'm sticking my face in the fire, but I'm like, you know what? I still have to try. At some point, maybe I'll, find some like-minded people who happen to be on the opposite side of the fence, but maybe they'll say, you know what? There's some, logical thinking that you have here. Let's have a really good in-depth conversation. That's actually pretty rare to find, but you know what? Have to try, right? So y'all let me know what y'all think. That's it for now, y'all.